All right, well, and welcome everyone, and thank you for this time for us to be able to share our product being the Alltech DocLink, and we're very excited to be here today. And so we'll just get right into it because we have a very short amount of time to cover the content at hand. So with that said, there was already a gentle introduction. We have my partner in crime, if you will, Kurt, on the phone. He handles Eastern Canada, and I handle Western Canada as a region, and we're glad to serve. And so always feel free to reach out through our partner and ask any questions about our product, and we're more than glad to assist in any way with your BAASS representative. So with that said, here's a brief overview of what we'll be discussing today. Very simple in format, but should you have any questions, always feel free to speak up and ask them. And with that said, we'll begin with our first slide. As we know it, COVID-19 has completely changed the landscape of how we work today. You'll see some figures, facts and figures here on the board from Gartner that basically shares some very key pivotal points. And with that said, what it's really sharing is that 82% of the companies out there in the market are allowing their part-time workers or workers to work part-time from home. And so this creates a very vast difference given that most traditionally, we've had to have hands on the documents and actually touch them. And so what does this really mean? It means companies are embracing a hybrid workforce. And that's basically a true digital transformation. But that also comes with a set of business challenges. And with the DocLink product, we believe we have a solution for that. So what happens whenever you need to access your documents and you're working from home? Or what happens whenever you're on the road? Is your critical data available at your fingertips? Can you easily access this information in a prompt time so you can get a proper turnaround for your customers' needs? That's where the document management solution can come into play, by providing a meaningful way for you to store your documents and index them and translate that document content into meaningful data that can be used throughout your business process. And so that's especially important today, given that we have to respond very quickly to our customers' very unique needs. There's a lot of pains, if you will, and struggles that we deal with on the physical documents in our day-to-day operations as it is today. Now, adding COVID into this and compounding the remote access, that even further complicates it. When we're talking about AP documents, what we're looking for is we're referencing an invoice number, a PO number, a due date, a vendor name, header and footer, and line item if that's applicable, and any project-based documents. So because we're finding documents within our environment, this can get a bit complicated by the traditional methods. I like to know, or at least propose, that these thoughts to be provoking in nature so that you can, these questions about to propose to you, so you can actually use those to kind of ascertain where you sit today. So as many still use their filing cabinets to store their documents, do you do the same thing? Are you storing them in a physical document or those physical documents in actual file cabinets? Is it on site or are you paying to have it stored off site? And if you pay for off site storage, you have to pay for each time you retrieve said document. Maybe you're storing your business documents in a digital format on your network in a file share. Commonly, that's what many companies do to help with the offsetting the cost of storing it outside of the organization. And then what happens if you accidentally misfiled something or you deleted it, or it's just not there in general, but you know that it is someplace, the time spent to actually find it. Maybe you have software in place that is a bit dated and doesn't provide the functionality you really need and desire to have today. It's not flexible enough, you can't accomplish the task you need in a timely fashion, and so you're using other old traditional methods of spreadsheets and whatnot to fill in those gaps. And then when you want to run reports, you can't do so and get a very comprehensive view or a granular view of what is going on. And then finally, the most important critical thing is the integration to your ERP system. Do you have one? Is it one way or is it bidirectional? And is it an active connection? What is really happening in that old grand scheme of things? So this is a great question. And so our next slide will actually answer that with a visual diagram. So how does DocLink really work? With that said, you'll see a little bit of circles that have appeared with a chain in the center. This is a visual representation of our repository. The repository functions much like a Google. It's your company data, your documents are stored, and this is where it actually starts. So once it's in the secured repository, we can do so much more And we'll be describing that with a number of bit of pop-ups that will be coming up. And those pop-ups will be describing basic tasks and then associated modules that are available to our product. So with that said, initially, you have our capturing need. So these are a few examples of ways that we can actually capture documents and that data and bring it into the repository. And so that is incredibly powerful because as you're capturing, you're able to get all shapes and sizes and forms and types of documents and actually store them within the repository. Next is we add your process, your current process, or maybe a hybrid of best business practices mixed with your current process. And again, here's a few examples of things that we can do to automate that process. And this can be as complicated or as simple as you wish it to be. With that, then now you have a connection, a two-way synchronization that occurs into the Sage system, being your ERP system. Now, many times once you get it in the system, there's a number of different things that happen. One of the most common things is you have to be able to retrieve the information in there. Your end users want to be able to see it once it's in there, and DocLink basically stores that information in the repository, so now they can search the index documents that are there of any type or flavor, if you will, and easily do so without having to worry about naming conventions, etc., because that's all done in an automated fashion by your direction through your process and the way you wish things to work in as a whole. So your employees or whoever it may be able to retrieve said documents very easily and quickly. So then second most important thing is being able to deliver the documents. So as customers want to be able to have access to them, here's a few common methodologies that we have available. Now, finally, to round out the overall solution, again, we spoke to the two-way synchronization. This is the holistic connection, if you will, mixed with the process or workflow that makes everything have continuity. With that said, I will go ahead and turn over the presentation to Kurt, and he will continue on and provide the remainder of the content.
Yep. Thank you, Tim. And sure, you can see my screen. All right, so where I wanted to take over now was these next three topics, and really what this is that transformation that's going paperless, right? So I would say 9 times out of 10 we're going to start in accounts payable, and there's an obvious reason for that, right? It's because there's just a lot of paper in AP, and this is a low-hanging fruit when it comes to document management and finding the ROI, but it's also something that everyone relates with, right? So the idea behind automating accounts payable is getting those timely approvals everywhere, eliminating filing and data entry, right, as much as we can. And then having that self-service document access is huge. And then on top of this, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build upon your initial investment in the Sage ERP, right? Regardless of what version or flavor you're using of the ERP, we have integrations across all the Sage ERP available. So that being said, let's talk about kind of that traditional AP process and what we want to do with DocLink, right, in the AP scenario. So on the slide here, you're seeing, a traditional kind of AP steps, if you will, starting from, the invoice coming in, POs, you can route those around, there's coding, there's approvals, there's budgets, there's all these things that take place, right? But if we can streamline this and simplify it, we're going to be able to reduce this by more than, I would say, 60%, even higher in some cases, in processing costs, right? You're going to improve efficiencies, improve controls, etc. But it's really taking out the mundane steps when it comes to your AP processes today that are paper-based, right? So what we're really trying to do is simplify it as much as possible. So we want to capture, we want to get it coded, we want to get it approved, and we want to just simply get it promoted to the GL within Sage itself. So eliminate those mundane manual tasks. Now, the benefits behind this are pretty straightforward, if you will. Again, kind of that low-hanging fruit scenario, and that's why a lot of folks start with AP, is because we're going to be able to pretty much eliminate all paper within paper invoices, that is. We're going to be able to reduce approval times from weeks to days, if not hours, if not minutes, right? So the idea again is to code, approve, promote, and deliver into the ERP. So AP is fairly straightforward. And there's a couple examples on this. When we're doing this, it's just a quick snapshot. We don't have a lot of time to get into the software, but I wanted to give you an idea of really what this is. So the invoice comes in, we use workflow to route it around. From there, the invoices will be automatically routed based on a subset of rules that are created for approvals. And then once it's approved and it is coded, it'll be imported into the GP or into the ERP, excuse me, and then a payment can be issued directly from there. We can capture that payment remnants and attach it to the invoice. So that way you have the full audit trail of the approvals, the payments that took place, and people that maybe need to check to see if a payment was made. Maybe a manager wants to check to make sure a payment was made on their behalf. They can log into DocLink. They can find all that information at their fingertips without having to bug AP, right? So approvals are easy with DocLink as well. You can simply do them from your email. You can do them from a mobile device. You can add notes to these. Any annotations can be applied and sent back via workflow. And you could do so directly from within the web client. This is how you access documents and access workflow when you're at your desktop. Simply you log in here. It is, in this case, we're looking at workflows. You'll see all the invoices there in someone's queue. This is more likely going to be an AP personnel, but they would be able to click on these and open these invoices individually. So if you were to open one of these invoices, it would look something like this. You would have the GL information up on the header portion of the screen here, and then below you have the invoice. To the right, you have the ability to approve, deny, add notes, but then you can also code from here as well for a non-PO invoice, and then you could route this to the next step in workflow. So the look and feel is very seamless. It's clean. It's easy to do. It takes the thinking out of a lot of things when coding and approving because it's all there at the screen. It's all there at your fingertips. And with the integration to Sage, we're using existing data that's in Sage to tie it to invoices such as the one shown here on the screen. So that's accounts payable. Again, kind of just quick, high level, but we can do automated matching with PO invoices, etc. Really take the full cradle to grave scenario on that AP process and make it as streamlined as possible. The next is going to be accounts receivable, right? I think traditionally people start in AP and then, accounts receivable next, and then human resources, which we'll touch on shortly. But for accounts receivable, really what we're looking at here is quick invoice delivery, supplemental documentation at your fingertips, right? Being able to send that out and approve customer service or experience, right? So when we talk about accounts receivable, oftentimes we're talking about that sales order quote to cash scenario, right? So typically a quote gets created, customer purchase order, sales order acknowledgement, pick tickets, invoice, customer payment. So this is kind of that traditional cycle of that sales order to cash scenario. So the idea here is we want to manage this within DocLink and within Sage, and we'll have, again, that full audit trail. We'll have all this information at your fingertips because we're capturing it every single step, from quote to payment, and you'll have all this information. Again, it's tied to Sage. It's very seamless. We can produce information with a couple clicks of a button and send it directly out to customers with supplemental documentation, right? So we understand today with Sage, you can send out an AR invoice. However, oftentimes customers or vendors are going to ask for additional information to go along with that invoice, and we could package all that up behind the scenes. So once it's packaged, it'll automatically go out to those customers or vendors based on their preference and what they need. So a good example of this is Tyler Technologies. Then they sent out ACHs for all payments, and they wanted to get rid of this postage, right? They wanted to get rid of this courier fee. So the idea here is they physically mailed their ACH remittances every week. It was just too much paper. There was a lot of storage. It was just a really slow, mundane. It was a waste of time at the end of the day, right? With these manual processes, and the costs slowly kept getting higher and higher and higher. And they realized, if we eliminate this, we could save at least $11,000 right out of the gate when we install something like DocLink, right? So that's what they did, right? So maybe you're not necessarily emailing or not mailing, but mailing out the ACH remittances. Maybe it's invoices, right? Maybe you're still manually doing this, and maybe you're still manually emailing it out yourself when you can actually have DocLink do this for you. It's a huge time savings across the board, not only for money, but for your staff's time as well. But they were able to start there and then go beyond, which a lot of customers do, which is a nice thing because DocLink can actually scale, and it can scale rather quickly as opposed to just solving one pain point, which is AP. So that was a quick example of AR. So now I want to talk about HR here, because again, as I mentioned, we're kind of going in this the direction of how DocLink scales, starting with AP. And traditionally what we see is after AR, we do see HR and human resources. And the reason behind that is there's just simply a lot of paperwork that goes along with your employee files, right? So a great example of this is a supermarket chain, Econo Supermarkets. They had to eliminate paper and repurpose workforce, right? So they had a challenge not only in AP but in HR. And the interesting thing for Econo on the HR front is they wanted to create a resume bank. Being a supermarket, they had quite a bit of turnover, and they didn't want to continually, post ads for replacements. So they decided that they would create a resume bank, file every resume or application that came in. And then if someone didn't work out in the first maybe 30 or 90 days, they didn't have to go repost that job or position. They could go into the resume bank, simply search for a clerk application, find that, and then reach out to that individual. From there, they were able to capture other documentations once that individual had been hired. So really the idea here is it became a full-blown document management solution that managed all their HR documents, from hiring to, maybe they got merit increases, maybe they got promoted, etc. Right? All that documentation could be handled within DocLink, which is a great solution, right? And then not only were they able to solve that HR pain, but they also were able to solve that traditional kind of AP pain that everybody experiences. So again, DocLink can scale wonderfully when it comes to managing documents. It doesn't matter what department it is. It could be AR, it could be HR, it could just be in legal, right? Contracts, anything like that. It is a very strong solution when scaling. So how can it impact the other areas of your organization, right? So we talked about accounts receivable, we talked about HR. I just mentioned legal because this is a big one as well. And because of that, we have, because of our capabilities with version control, full text search, we have integrations into DocuSign for documents that need to be signed with wet ink, if you will, or digital ink. We can monitor expirations and retention dates with rules within the system, so we can notify users that maybe a contract is going to expire within 90 days or 30 days, however frequent you want that notification. So that way you can be ahead of the curve and not have to deal with it and try to, get a new contract in place when one expires. Field service is a big one because of our mobile capabilities, because of our web client, allowing users to have access to documents from wherever they are, whether they're in the field or in the office, right? But being able to access information, create forms on the fly. Maybe it's a work order, they can access that, they can complete a work order, and they can send it back into the corporate office for processing from the job site. They can upload physical pictures of maybe damaged goods, things like that with field service. Facilities management is a big one. And of course, I had already talked about the sales order processing. So the idea here is we're enterprise-wide, right? We're not just an AP. You're going to start in AP, but the nice thing is a lot of that functionality you're using to solve that AP pain is going to be repurposed and reused to solve pains in, field service, if you're not in field service, HR, legal, facilities management, etc. Right? So you get the point here. You can really scale and use DocLink to its full potential and not have to buy one solution to solve one pain point in AP, then buy another one to solve a solution in HR, etc. Right? So some key differentiators here. I know we have a few minutes left, but I do really want to walk through these. Is for us, we have the complete life cycle of a document. So that cradle to grave scenario, as I mentioned, whether you're talking AP scenario or a quote to cash scenario, we have the full audit trail, the document retention, we have the versioning, we have all that. OCR and automated matching, right? OCR is a big buzzword for a lot of folks. Everybody wants it. AR capabilities, things like that. We have the ability to automatically capture documents and data, which helps reduce data entry and then also automates three-way matching to streamline that AP process, right? We have flexible workflow in that framework for you to expand that workflow into other areas of the organization, not just AP, not just one department, right? And these can be automated workflows where you can set up rules behind the scenes based on where documents need to go, based on the data on those documents. So it's a very powerful tool to drive your business processes without human interaction, really, right? Powerful search and retrieval. So again, accessing information from anywhere, anytime with full text search from your mobile device, from the web client, from the desktop application, directly from the ERP, as Tim mentioned earlier in his little overview there. But the idea here is we have the ability to find information very easily, pretty much from anywhere. Electronic smart forms. So we have the ability to create any type of form you want. It'll be a web-based form within DocLink. So getting rid of expense reports, getting rid of purchase requisitions, the list really does go on. HR onboarding forms, things like that. Automated document delivery. I talked about this, right? We can send out documents, not just an AR invoice, but we can send out marketing collateral if you want. We can send out supplemental documentation. Anything that's in DocLink can be sent out to a customer, a vendor, whomever, right? DocuSign integration is a big one. Again, if you're doing any type of, legal documentation where, again, you need that wet ink scenario, we have that capability of the integration with DocLink. This is a true enterprise content management solution, right? So it's centralized, it's storage, it's access of all your vital records. And outstanding customer support. We're based in North America. Our support staff is based in Tacoma, Washington. We are available 24/7, 365. We have customers all around the world, and we are an endorsed vendor for Sage itself. So we have an agreement in place with Sage, and we are the preferred document management vendor because of our integration, because of our history, because of what we've done in the past with Sage. They prefer us 9 times out of 10 over others. So with that being said, I know we have about a minute left. I want to see if there's any questions that popped up here, and would be happy to address those.
Thank you so much for that, Kurt, and Tim from earlier. I did have a few questions that have come in. Is there an option to store all data in Canada? As a provincially funded not-for-profit, we are required to store our data in Canada.
Yes, absolutely. So should be noted that DocLink is an on-premise solution, and it can be hosted in a cloud or on a hosted server. But for our Canadian customers, we would suggest that it be hosted by on-premise, or it would be hosted by a third-party provider up there and not be used in the DocLink cloud.
Let's see. I assume this is a full package purchase, i.e. you can't get it piecemeal.
You can absolutely get it piecemeal. So DocLink is modular, and as I mentioned, several times, starting in AP, you're going to use a certain set of modules to solve that AP pain. But if you want to start expanding into other areas of the organization, you can add in additional modules if needed. But yeah, we're modular, we're scalable, we're flexible. So it's not just one size fits all.
For licensing, is it a named license or a concurrent license?
It would be a concurrent license, and that's the nice thing. And it's a check-in, check-out functionality. And the nice thing is you can access information without having to utilize a Sage license for individuals that don't necessarily need to get into the ERP.
Does this have a vendor portal where vendors can view payment information?
Yes, we do have the ability to offer that through our web client where vendors can log in. They're not even going to utilize a license, and they would be able to access payment information, things like that.
And the last question we have here is, I suspect that you've probably touched on a lot of this, but it's kind of a whole bunch of questions in one. How are documents saved? We have a ton of documents. Do they get saved on the server or on the cloud? Do they get archived? And do they slow the system at some point?
So yeah, a couple questions
That's a big
there. No, for Canadian customers, it's going to be, once again, it's going to be an on-premise solution. So it's going to be on your servers or on your hosted servers in Canada. And then the second part to that is archival documents. Yes, documents can be archived for however long you would like. We don't have any auto purging per se. However, we do have a tool within workflow where we can push documents to a dedicated workflow, and at that point you can decide whether or not you want to purge those documents or hold on to them. Usually this just comes up based on business rules, however long you need to hold on to documents for. Usually it's a 7-year time frame, could be longer depending on the industry, but you have the authority to delete documents as you wish. DocLink won't do that automatically. And then the last question was to slow the system down. No, the system never really gets slowed down. If you're doing on-prem, server space is so inexpensive these days that there hasn't been an issue with that for a very long time, and there shouldn't be any in the foreseeable future, as things have just gotten better and better and cheaper with storage.
Well, thank you very much for that, Kurt and Tim.